Hello, everyone. This is part two of my celebration, and I have another special guest for you. And this time it is the wonderful and lovely and good friend, Bob the Bookerer. Hope you enjoyed this interview. So, I have a couple of interviews planned today. So, you're
Nice.
number two. um, Bob, you're Bob the Bookerer. I call you Mr. Bookerer because you are the specialist of the Bookerer Award.
I think it's one of those things people are like, oh, like they'll sort of say like, oh, you know so much about it. I'm like, no, I'm just a nerd. I've just spent maybe too much. I've spent too much time thinking about this. This is not to be applauded. This is not admirable.
But you found your niche in a way.
Yeah.
And that's fun because you go like all the go through all the nominations and the long lists and the short lists, and you read of all the years, you read all the books more or less if you can, if you can find them.
Yeah, which is, I think I've only got about 100 left of the main of the sort of the regular non-international Booker shortlists to read, which is kind of wild. Yeah.
And do you feel that there's an evolution in the way they select books?
That's a really good question. I think it's been interesting in recent years to see that it's been sort of moving a little bit more towards acknowledging where some of the really exciting stuff is happening. So a lot of indie and small presses are kind of where a lot of really exciting work is happening. And it's been fun to see those presses start to get a bit more love from the Booker. But I think also maybe I think it feels like it's moved a little bit away, I guess, from it only really being dominated by like the big name authors at the time. So it's kind of interesting because every year I think people are like, but what, this person's missing. But actually I think that's kind of the joy, right? It's quite fun to have a list. This is 5 people selecting books that they really enjoyed. It doesn't have to be who will stand the test of time and who is like the big major author of the time. It could be this book is right now what is sort of tapping into the someone like Patricia Lockwood, right, where it's sort of like this book is very kind of this moment. Maybe it will be spoken about in the future, maybe it won't be, maybe in terms of what its relevance will be, but it's kind of this book has something to say. So that feels like a nice thing. And I guess trends as well, for a while I think older like 80s or 70s and 80s Booker lists seem to be dominated a lot by conversations around post-colonialism, because that was lots of nations were gaining independence and things like that. So yeah, it does reflect the times, I guess, which has been quite interesting.
So there are trends really on the way. So maybe now it's more about gender and gender identification and equality and writers of color, and that get more attention than before, rightly so.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite fun because I think lots of like recent lists, like I get people not necessarily liking every book that's been on a list, like you're never going to, but it does feel like the kind of scope of what kinds of stories are being told is kind of being a little bit more reflected, right? That you can have a book like like Nadifa Muhammad's The Fortune Men telling a sort of a story of a Somali population in Cardiff, which hadn't that's a book and sort of set of stories that we don't often see quite as much. So it's been kind of interesting to sort of see that not only are those books getting published more, but they are, I suppose, being a bit more celebrated as well.
Cool. And like before, I guess if you were a big name and you brought out a new book, you're practically automatically on the list, and now that's a whole lot less, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when Hilary Mantel wasn't shortlisted like a few years back with The Mirror and the Light, because it was she was longlisted, but I appreciated that it was that there isn't sort of this is 5 people sat in a room choosing their favorites, and so you know, you sort of take out the name of the author. You sort of, what is our reading experience of these 13 books or 140 books or whatever, and sort of where do they go from there. So that's kind of fun. I mean, it's obviously it's not perfect, but I mean it never will be, but it's kind of, yeah, it's interesting to kind of see how it's been shaping.
Will you read the long list for the Women's Prize?
I'm probably going to dip in. So I think with the Women's Prize, I normally read the short list and then dip into ones from the long list that sound interesting. But actually, I really like the long list this year.
It's a very diverse list.
It's a really cool list. Like, there are a few books in there that I basically wanted to read anyway, like Trespasses by Louise Kennedy, and
oh yeah, that's a good one. I read that one.
Oh, I'm really keen. It's one of those books I keep on parking because I'm like, no, I've got like loads that I need to read right now and that I've got in front of me and that I need to get back to the library. So that's kind of been bumped up a little bit.
I like that one, but I don't think it will win though.
Oh, okay.
I don't even think it will get on the short list.
Oh,
but
okay.
It's a good book.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else is. There are a few others that I was like, I'm a fan. I'm quite keen on reading. I think yeah, there are a few that I've heard sort of decent things about. So I'm kind of, I sort of, the Women's Prize is the one where, yeah, I read the short list and cherry pick a little bit with the long list. We shall see. How about you? What are you feeling with it? Are you going to be reading the whole thing?
No. It's too expensive. I have to buy everything.
Of course, yeah.
I can't rely on the library because most of them aren't translated into Dutch. And in my little library, there are only books in the Dutch language. So a lot of translated fiction, of course, but not no new English because it's too small. It's such a small little. We only have like 7,200 inhabitants in our village. So it would be crazy to buy everything in English. So no, I will pick a couple, but and then again, it's not my niche in a way. I try to find things that stay under the radar because there's so many people on BookTube that talk about the Women's Prize, all the prizes, and for me I have nothing extra to add. So I read them in my private time, but I don't necessarily talk about them on my channel because there's no need. I don't add anything. So it's not necessary to make 10 videos about the same book. So I try to find new books and other books that nobody talks about.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I would like to hear your thoughts on those, like I also, yeah, I know what you mean. There have definitely been some things where I've just been like, I feel like loads of people have said this way better than I could. So is there a point in me doing another video on whatever book?
No, so it's your niche, and that's just no, but it's just that's why people watch you, and not only because you do the recent ones, but you do the ones also in the 70s and the 80s, and that makes it a whole lot more interesting. So it's important to see your take on the things, because it's really your niche. It's not just you do something on the side. It's your thing, and then a lot of indie presses. No.
Yeah, I mean, I do love an indie press. I think, yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely, there were some books. I can't remember a good example now. I know there was definitely one a couple of years ago where it was a really big release. I watched loads of really great videos on it. I was like, you know what? Like, if anyone asks me, like, if anyone is really keen on hearing my thoughts on this, just see Eric's video. He did it way better. Like,
oh my God. No, I really appreciate your view, because you have a different view, a different take on the books. Always, you see things that others don't see, and yeah, you do. So yeah, I really enjoy it, and that's why I like your channel so much. And you also read a lot about GLBTQ books, and I love those too. We have quite a similar taste, I believe. And but yeah, I try to add something from my side of the channel, but it's not always easy because yeah, there are a lot of things coming out in Europe but not necessarily translated into English, so that makes it a whole more difficult. And of course now we have Love Me Tender by Constance de Pré, which is a beautiful book. You must read it. It's absolutely and Lie With Me, that's also a French book.
You talking about that. Yeah.
That I'm now finishing. And yeah, I really recommend those books. And those are the type of books you would you like to see too. You like to read too. Will you come back to Brussels?
Yes.
Anytime soon?
So I think the next few months are horrendous for me in terms of my calendar. Like, and with work, I can't take time off properly. But I think this summer I am planning on doing a bit of traveling because I will need to, because I am a very tired Bob at the moment. And so
You're welcome.
I'm already looking forward to like July and August when I might do a bit of traveling and like get outside of London for a little bit. But yes, I would love that. Please,
Okay.
I want to come and see your lovely face again. So
we will definitely meet up, and you're invited. You know that.
thank you.
So yeah, I'll talk to you later, and thank you for your little chit chat.
Thank you. Okay. Likewise, and congratulations on a year as well.
Yeah.
How is, if you don't mind me throwing a question back at you, how is it feeling being a year in on this weird and wonderful
it's like
thing?
I started yesterday.
Yeah.
It goes so quickly, and it's so much fun, and you meet so many great people like you, for instance. You were the first booktuber I met in person.
Yeah.
And then Ketevan was the second, and I hope to meet more people. And yeah, it's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah.
So yeah, I really enjoy it. And I'm not fed up with it at all. No.
Well, I mean, we're all very happy to have you on BookTube as well.
Thank you. So thank you for this short interview, and I'll talk to you later. Okay.
Later. Bye. Take care. Bye.
Bye.